Um,
Hi,
Okay.
everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Vito X DINO podcast. This is episode number 71. My name is Vito Delsante. His name is Dean Haspiel.
Hi everyone. I'm Dean Haspiel.
Dean, we have somebody special with us tonight.
Yes, we do.
Hi, everyone. I'm Ann Nocenti.
It's Ann Nocenti, everybody. Can you believe it? Living legend. Not kidding here at all. I swear to
No,
God.
not at
I
all.
I often like slap myself when I think about that. I get to hang out with Ann Nocenti sometimes. I'm not even kidding. And I've become her like Marvel date
Yes, you're my
recently.
Marvel date. But sometimes Fred is my Marvel date.
I
So
know,
it
I
goes
know.
back and forth. It's whichever one of you can make it.
That's true. But still, I
None of
feel honored, you know?
it's funny because, none of my partners are interested in going to Marvel events. So they're always like, get a comics person to go.
I'm a little bummed out that I'm not on the list, but then again, I don't know. I guess I haven't done enough
Yeah,
to
but
warrant that.
that thing we went to after the Kirby thing, that was a pretty exclusive list. It was people that worked at Marvel a long time.
Oh yeah,
You were one of the few people there that wasn't like a long
right,
time Marvel editor
right,
or executive or
right. And that was actually, and who knew that Dan Buckley, what, a week, 2 weeks later,
Not even,
would
yeah.
be
he re he retired.
that he retired. Yeah.
And then there were a bunch of layoffs, and there were a couple of my Marvel editor friends that were there that had to introduce themselves. I was meeting them in person for the first time, and they said, "By the way, I'm fired."
Oh,
Oh my
Because
God.
there were all those layoffs, and then I guess I vaguely noticed there's some now new head of Disney or Marvel that is going to take over the comics.
Two people, I think. They listed, I think someone that's in the cinema.
Yeah.
Brad Windermere is the first name. I
And
can't
then is there one
remember
with
the other.
games or something to do with gaming?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't
You
know.
know?
I have no idea what that'll mean, you know? Who knows? That's way
Well,
above our pay grade.
Well, I mean, and Ann Nocenti, this is a good question. So, people who don't know Ann Nocenti, a legendary comic book writer and editor, worked for Marvel and DC, co-created a character called Longshot with Arthur Adams, dared to write Daredevil after Frank Miller and kicked ass with John Romita Jr. and Al Williamson. Great Daredevil run, and we'll talk about that later.
I vaguely remember having some conversation at the Marvel party. Didn't you come with me to the Daredevil party too?
Yeah, yeah.
And we were joking because there were like six Daredevil writers there, and me and John Romita Jr. got nominated for an Eisner for our run on Daredevil. It was
Mm,
specifically the John Romita issues. But it was only like the second or third year of the Eisners, and
right.
we weren't even that aware that we were nominated.
Hmm.
Neither of us remembered that we were nominated. I've never
Hmm.
put in my bio,
Right.
Eisner nominated. And then fans started coming up to me and saying, you were nominated for an Eisner. I was like, no, I wasn't. But Frank, I think, maybe because, Frank must have been nominated for the very first year because I think I was nominated for year two. I'd have to look it up. Uh, and then, Chip is there and
Oh, we're
Stephanie.
talking about the Daredevil season two Born Again premiere party we went to. There was Chip, there was you,
Chip,
there was Frank,
Frank, there was
Stephanie,
Stephanie, the new Daredevil writer,
writer,
and Chip and
Charles probably
Chip
was there
is
too, no?
Charles Soule,
Charles
Charles
Soule,
Soule.
yeah. So and then Frank was like, "How young were you when you?" We were all comparing, like, "How young were you when you wrote it?" And
Oh
then the
yeah,
older writers were like, because me and Frank were both very young,
Yeah.
but Chip Chip wrote Daredevil when he was older. Stephanie's older, so they were talking about how now they don't let youngsters write comics anymore at Marvel. We were in our 20s when we did, and now those guys are in their 30s, I think. And so everybody was joking about all this stuff. And then, you know, Chip was talking about how many issues his comic sold versus it was like a really funny,
right, right.
fake competition thing.
Right, totally.
It's
And
hard not to be funny around Chip. Like Chip
yeah,
just
no, he's hilarious. He just it's instant hilarity everywhere he goes, you
I
know.
mean, to look at him is to laugh at him.
To look at him. Yeah,
Just to look at him, you
so
know?
he, we amped up that photo shoot, but it was really fun. And I don't know, what are we talking about?
Well,
Oh,
let me ask you, and let me
I
ask you. So you're talking about writing Daredevil in your 20s, and I think so did Frank Miller, was probably in
yes.
his late
Yes. And
20s or
so what I
something.
mean is I think
So,
Chip
well,
didn't write Daredevil till he was in his 40s.
so this is the question, though. This is a good question. So you have written Daredevil recently because I took you to the mermaid spa and you had to write a Daredevil story and you were
Yes.
inspired by the bathhouse, right?
The
But
bathhouse. So me
but
and
but
Dean
like
are in a
yeah.
bathhouse, and we're like hanging out, and there were this young couple, these two girls that put these face masks on, and they were like glued to their faces, like doing some kind of beauty treatment. But I was like, I got a Daredevil story too. That image is perfect,
Yep.
And
Yep.
then
Yep.
looking around the bathhouse, it was all steamy, and I was like, Matt's radar wouldn't work so well in here. And if he comes in, he's going to look hot. So all the girls are like drooling over him. And it just became, and that brings me to something else. I really enjoy doing short stories.
Mm-hmm.
They're
Mm-hmm.
more work if if it's a character. And this is something because I'm doing a Mary Jane story next. Mary Jane, who they changed her name to MJ because Mary Jane is like smoking pot.
Oh, come
And
on.
for a
Okay.
while, and
Is that for Spidey 1000?
it's for Mary Jane's 60th.
Oh, wait. No, but I meant
Yeah.
like is it for a Spider-Man comic though?
No, they're doing a Mary Jane's 60th anniversary.
Oh, like a one
like a
shot.
special.
Yeah, so
Oh, wow.
Marvel, started in the 60s, and they're going through all the characters that have been around for 60 years. And so they're doing, and I think that it's to celebrate them, but also to do a compact history of the character,
Yeah.
so
Mm-hmm.
that you get assignments like, you know, my Mary Jane story takes place when they were living in that Chelsea apartment, I think. So, and then you read, so this is another thing for young writers. I'm always like in teaching mode. When I started at Marvel, I only had to read 20 years because I started in the 80s.
That's a
There were
good
only
point.
20 years of stories. But when I write a Marvel comic now, I have to go to Wikipedia, and I openly admit that I don't really keep up on anything.
Yeah.
And so, like, once in a while I'll pick something up and love it and enjoy it, but everybody's too busy to. So I was reading Mary Jane's entry, and it was like in the 40 years that I missed, no, 89, no, the 30 years that I missed of her stories, she had become a superhero.
Yeah. Twice.
So she had become some superhero, and then she became Venom, I think. And so I was able to tell a story where she's pre-empowered, because she started out as an unempowered woman who was the girlfriend. She was a soap opera star, a model,
Right.
all this. And the only Mary Jane story I ever told was I had typhoid beat the shit out of her for being such an unempowered woman and just waiting for your man and cooking dinner. And so I was able to do sort of the next minute of that story where Mary
Right.
Jane goes out and kicks ass and realizes she could be empowered, but it was in that exact sweet spot of not empowered yet.
Hmm.
So it's a lot of fun, but I really feel bad for young writers who have to learn 60 years
I
of
feel bad for old writers too. I mean, come on, man. Like if you ask me to write an 8-page Daredevil story, I have to do what you do and go, wait a second, there's 50 years of Daredevil or something. So how can you
But
do something in
that's not
continuity?
entirely
You
true,
know?
though. When you think about it, they redo the continuity almost every 2 years. Like they
Yeah,
Well,
but
in
you're
this case,
supposed to, yeah, you're supposed to know though, as a writer. So for a short story, they give you leeway because you'd have to do a really big dive if you're taking over a series,
Right.
so and I mean, to be honest, when you hit your 60s, which is what I'm in now, you're not going to be hired to take over a book.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And that
Mm-hmm.
is as it should be. We should let the young people in. We should definitely let them in. And I like that I get just enough short story work or a 6-issue series to stay in the game. And if you're doing a 6-issue series, you have to do a deep dive. You have to learn everything. And even that's hard. I did a podcast with the new writer of Captain Marvel, and I had done, Captain Marvel is an insanely complex because she's Carol Danvers and she's also binary and she's been mind wiped and all this stuff. And she's the most powerful creature in the universe now. So you can't know it all. So you read up enough to do your thing. And then Paul Jenkins, who's taking over the book, he found a sweet spot in her journalistic history. And I was like, damn, I'm a journalist. I missed that chapter of her
Mm-hmm.
life. I would have doubled down on that.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
you find something that you can relate to and a little sweet spot, and
Well,
you
I agreed, but my question that I was gonna, because we were talking about writing Daredevil in your 20s, and we're just using Daredevil as an example here now, and then you wrote him years later, or at least you wrote a short story. I feel like it
I
it,
did
it
it. I did
starred
a
Turk,
short.
right?
I love every short story I've done for Daredevil. I did one with David Aja, which is just so much fun
Mm,
because David Aja took like a tiny notion of firecrackers and turned it into like a visual,
mm, mm-hmm,
symphony.
mm,
And then I did a story with Stefano Raffaele, the one in the baths, and
mm-hmm,
his Daredevil was magnificent.
mm,
Like he just chose this one moment to really like draw the hell out of him,
mm-hmm.
and that was like a Turk story. I think it revived like the goofy
Oh,
Turk.
hey, yeah.
And what about Steve Ditko? You were telling me a story when I saw
Oh,
you
but
last.
then the next short story was for, I think it was like Daredevil 60, and Chip Zdarsky drew the story. And
Oh,
that is the
oh.
sweetest story. I just did it from the point of view of the women that hung on the rooftops doing laundry in Hell's Kitchen while a big mafia war was going on elsewhere. So they see the sound effects, they're doing the laundry. Daredevil comes flying in bloody, and they, launder him and keep laundering.
It's so weird because it's almost sounds like they're almost more inspired by Will Eisner's spirit in like his latter years, where
Oh
it's
yeah, yeah.
less about the spirit and more about the
No,
city
I'm
behind
I'm
him.
absolutely inspired by Will Eisner's mise en scene, to use a pretentious word, of Hell's Kitchen, New York, with the garbage tumbling and the birds and the, everything that he put in. And I think that I was thinking about it today because I was working on a story and I was like, it's not spectacular. It's not, super, they always used to say in comics you have an unlimited budget because the artist can draw space and black holes and all this stuff. And I'm thinking, well, this is kind of too small a story for a superhero, maybe. And then I thought, but with AI coming in,
Yeah.
it's a level playing field again because now people can tell stories. They just released some new insane thing where you can like edit by talking
Mm,
at a screen
mm.
and it does all the stuff for you.
Huh.
So no more comics have an edge because we can draw anything. That's gone, you know.
Well, I will say this though. I think and this I was talking to some people about AI and how it can do a lot of stuff that people who don't discern or don't care, they just want the thing. They don't care if AI made it or not. That's fine. But what I'm getting at is that now you have to lean into Ann Nocenti. You have to lean into Vito Delsante, Dean
Right.
Haspiel, whoever. You have to lean into, oh, I want what they do. Like you can only
Yeah,
get it from me type of attitude.
and it's also really important to think about because, you know, like say you have an assignment to do a Mary Jane story, and then the temptation is to like use AI and say, give me 5 possible Mary Jane stories.
Oh,
Honestly, the AI will have scraped every story for you. But if you do that, you're not going to get me, which
no,
Mhm.
is
Right.
what I do. And eventually AI will be able to say, where you'll say, give me a Mary Jane story in the style of Dean Haspiel or Ann Nocenti, and it'll be able to do that.
right, right,
But it'll
right,
do it in a weird way because I always do some social justice angle. It'll do some stupid social,
right,
come up
right.
with something.
But let me ask you this: what I've been trying to get to, because it's something you said earlier, which was writing Daredevil in your 20s, and and then how it's a young person's game. They should always have young people taking over these series.
Yeah.
But actually, I feel like we get better as we get older. We do a lot of punky, weird stuff that's fun and early on that we may not return to. But I feel like, what about the 60-year-old Ann Nocenti Daredevil story? Like,
Well, I think that it's you're right, but I do think we have to step out of the way to a certain degree because there's a really limited amount of comic work out there. And if you look at film directors, for instance, like a lot of the great film directors who kept trying to get bigger and bigger and bigger fell on their face in the end. But the directors that returned to small stories, it's like, and that's where my brain is going, which is why The Seeds and Ruby Falls were perfect for me because they're like indie. And I I'm more interested in indie comics now where you don't have to do something big and spectacular.
you
So,
don't have to do 50 years of homework either. And that's another thing. They don't pay you
yeah.
for that homework.
No,
You
they
have to
don't.
do that
No.
homework.
Right.
No, and it's a lot of homework for each story, but you get good at it and it's also interesting, because I love the characters. So,
Yeah.
yeah, but I think that it's a combination of getting out of the way and still I always need a bone to chew on. That's what, like, my brain, I have trained my brain to need a bone to chew on, and it's
Hmm.
really it's like an addiction, and I can't kick it, which is that if I'm not rolling a story away in my head, rolling it around in my head, everything I see on the street and experience that the week I'm writing that story gets rolled into the story automatically. And it's like this weird process that I can't stop.
Hmm.
Does
Hmm.
that, does,
Absolutely.
So I'm sure it happens to Vito. Vito and I were talking, I think, recently, where I have like a bunch of stories that I've been crafting over time, and sometimes, as much as I want them to be super relevant or talking about what's now, I do consciously attempt to write evergreen stories. Meaning, if you read it 20 years from now, it still means something, because it
yes.
has evergreen parts to it. But what I'm missing out on is the social daily commentary in my work. And recently, I've been doing a monthly Red Hook comic strip for the Red Hook Star Review,
Oh,
where I
cool.
get to kind of scratch a little bit of that itch.
Well,
Where, you
speaking
know,
of that, I thought I got the mail today and I got like my usual stack of bills and garbage, but also got a package and I thought I'd save it for an unboxing. So
I
here's my
wonder,
unboxing moment
I
of the
wonder what it
mail.
is.
What is it?
Mm, mm. And it's not only is it, well, it's COVID Cop and Antimatter that was,
Yes,
but look
and
what you
I
got.
got
You
a
got a drawing.
drawing. I got a beautiful Red Hook drawing signed by Dino.
And it's one of my favorite I had to draw 30 of those, and I think that was my favorite one, and I sent that to you so
Oh,
that you could be like,
perfect.
show that to some editors and be like, I gotta work with Dean.
Well, it's going on my wall,
I love it. I love
And
that.
then
Thank you
I
so
have
much.
not read it yet, but I'm excited to read it. I know this is
Thank you.
maybe people who aren't watching, people who are listening and not watching. This is Dean's new comic, Antimatter, and it's
Antimatter
got a
number
COVID
one.
cop also, and it goes
Bet.
backwards and forwards, I'm assuming. And if you do Kickstarter with Dean, you get a drawing. So
Yep. Yep. That's right. That was a good level. Thank you so much for supporting and being a
And
champion
unboxing.
and unboxing.
And
I've
then we
actually never done that.
and we should also unbox something else if you can pull it up, is the real comics.
Oh, you mean the actual comics from that are interior of that's
Well,
in that book?
because I don't,
Oh,
or
you
maybe
mean
you,
real life comics, real life
yeah.
comics. Yeah,
Oops.
you know what? I don't. I
You
think
have
I
it at the
have my
studio, I think.
dummy copy that Doug printed at the studio, and I'm at home right now. But
Anyway, the thing that I want to say about that is that Dean and Doug Latino put together this book, and you get to be in the same book with your heroes like Ben Catcher, Ross Chast. I mean, there's so many legends in this book, like legends that,
Yeah,
you,
I get to be in a
well,
book with
Vito's
you.
in
not
it.
I'm not, I mean, compared to those guys,
Well, I
it's
mean,
like,
that's the best part of it is that like we all have these levels, like
yeah.
somebody who I
That
looked up to,
that's
like
the
I would,
curation.
I would never have been included in a book with people like them. They're like indie gods.
Well, I mean, but you've done the Seeds. I feel like the Seeds is one of the best graphic novels of the last decade, honestly, and
Thank you very much. We
so
kind of
good.
got overlooked because it was the pandemic, and so we got
right.
2 issues out, and then the pandemic hit, and there were paper problems, supply problems, and it just became a nightmare. And so I think that books that came out during the pandemic got kind of in trouble in terms of like, and Ruby Falls also was during the pandemic. I did
Nope.
both those books at the same time, and we had we were going to an Italian con, and we were going to meet Flavio Biondi, who was the artist, and everything just fell apart. So
And
it
you were
was,
both for Karen Berger, right?
yeah. And Karen is only with Karen can you do the work that you've always wanted to work. She's incredibly generous and patient and loving about supporting.
Well, you were an editor on the X books and a bunch of other books. Like, what
Yeah, but I
did
was
you
more
look
of a,
for as like, with Karen, you're saying you're praising her. Like, and I
well,
feel like you must have done the same thing, no?
not really, because I was in charge of superheroes.
Uh,
And
yeah,
Karen was doing Vertigo, and Karen was giving people voice. She was bringing the Brits over. She
right.
was giving all those incredible talents a voice, and they didn't have to do superheroes. And Marvel, they had Epic, I think, but they didn't really have a Vertigo. So, and as an editor, my first priority was to the characters. So
Right.
the character, the voice of somebody interpreting a character, but your first priority is to the character. So,
It's interesting you talk about voice because you have to toe a line when you have a franchise and you're working with creative teams to make sure that the franchise, you can't really break the toys too much,
yeah.
usually. I for the first time I've been watching Girls, Lena Dunham's Girls, well, because Jen wanted to see it and we hadn't watched it when it came out. And it's very good. And it reminded me, and I think it came out after Jonathan Ames's Bored to Death, which I worked on. And I was thinking how at the time HBO, I don't know if they do it as much now, but HBO was a champion of a unique voice.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Both
And
in
so,
fiction and documentary.
right,
The
exactly.
HBO documentaries back then were stellar.
Yes. So like the champion of that voice and like trying to access that voice in mainstream comics can be difficult. I mean, obviously, you can name names. You can say Frank Miller, had a very strong voice or developed
Yeah.
one, uh Howard Chaykin, you can do the whole thing. But I remember in 1985, 17 going on 18, senior year of high school, becoming an assistant to Bill Sienkiewicz on New Mutants, Howard Chaykin on American Flag, and Walt Simonson on Thor, right?
You
And
were
so,
right there in the power center of creativity.
yeah,
That
yeah,
was like the heat.
yeah,
Yeah.
and Electra Assassin with Sienkiewicz as well.
Yeah.
So, like, but this is the thing. At least I was old enough to understand. Holy shit, I'm
Yeah.
working on like amazing comics right now.
Yeah.
So, during your tenure as editor at Marvel, did you know what you were working on and the
No,
impact and power of that, or were they
I
just
don't
next
think
month's
so.
books?
I don't think so because I didn't read comics growing up. So I had that. Some people will say that was an advantage
Hmm.
because I thought follow Frank Miller or do my own thing on Daredevil. it was just, I just did my own thing without really thinking about it. And
Hmm.
so it's a double-edged sword because you know, not growing up with this stuff gave me a deficit and an asset at the same time. And,
Right.
you know, and it just because I had studied film and journalism and I was an artist, you know, I fell into it really quickly and easily, but I didn't bring the mother load of the 20 years of history that came before me and the
Right.
history of indie comics. You know, I loved certain things like Love and Rockets, Crazy Cat. You know, I had like Pogo. I had certain things I loved, but um so I didn't really know superheroes. So, but Chris Claremont, you know, I mean, and plus I talk about this all the time, but the bullpen in person creativity, cauldron of creativity was
Mhm.
so important because no one sat you down and taught you anything. You just were there watching over everyone's shoulder, like whether it was Marie Severin or George Rousseau or, you know, and everybody in the bullpen was doing something. Rick Parker was there, the editor, John Romita Sr. You just looked over everybody's shoulders and you learned. And then the other thing is that now when you work on comics, it's email. And there is you remember the game telephone when you'd play
Yeah.
as a kid? It's a game of telephone. Things get misread constantly. And it's labor. It's time intensive to be composing emails and like
I'm just like, let's get on the phone. I don't want to do this.
get
Let's
in
get
the
on the phone.
phone. Yeah, you get on the phone. And it's like, and then in the 80s, the beauty of the 80s is that everybody was in the office. So you had
And you got together
Walt.
physically. Yeah.
Yeah, and Walt was there with his pages, and Frank was there with his page. Everybody's Sienkiewicz is in and out. Everybody's there. Steve Ditko's there. Everybody's there. Everybody's talking comics, storytelling, trading ideas. The editors are there to say, good idea, bad idea, let's go this way. And then it builds in a way that you can't do anymore. And
We,
so,
Dean and I have been doing like, well, we've done it once at least, but I'm sure we'll do it again. We've done Zoom meetings just talking about not for the show, but just for us to kind of work out stories and stuff. It's kind of the same, but different. You know,
yeah,
it's just the nature of the beast now. Um, but yeah, like he'll get frustrated because I like to text because I like having a record of, you know, like that I can refer to or an email or something. And Dean will just get frustrated and just call me immediately and just
Like
yeah,
I can't keep typing my idea.
yeah,
Like let's just talk kind of a thing. And yeah, I mean, but that's also I I you know, I was around
yeah.
that era.
yeah,
Like I wasn't in that era of you know, the bullpen, which you know, you grow up as a comic book fan, you hear about this famous bullpen from Stan Lee,
Yeah.
and in some ways it didn't exist the way he wrote it, you know, but there was a bullpen, in fact, you
it,
know. Do you
well,
remember
it
a guy
was,
named Pond Scum?
no, but it was,
Oh, I
I mean,
do.
I think the bullpen was better than the hyperbole of the bullpen because
Sure.
the hyperbole was something that Stan would do to bring excitement to everyone was different from the sort of more boring but exciting to me stuff we talked about, which was comic storytelling, was, you know, how to tell a
Right.
story in words and pictures. It is a unique linguistic unit, the word and the picture. And,
Right.
you know, I do little tiny crappy thumbnails of everything I write just to make sure the artists can do it. And that's really where you stage the whole thing. And even if it's stick figures, you got to do that
Yep.
stage. I don't know if people do that stage anymore.
I think some of the better comic book writers are the ones that at least think visually and
Yeah.
test it on their own, even if they're not going to share it. You
I've
know,
done
And
it.
I
we've
only
talked about
Yeah.
learned
that.
that because when I first started out, I mean, my comics were way too much story, multiple levels of story, too much blah blah, too many panels, too many. So you make a lot of mistakes, and then you go, "Holy shit, that's too much crap!" And then you start.
Right.
Now the art of it to me is like, how many words can I take out?
Yeah.
You
Totally.
know?
What
Totally. No,
was yeah,
yeah.
I don't want to, because I wasn't around in that time. I at the same time that Dean is 17, 18, I'm 12 years old. moving to
Yeah.
Pennsylvania and going to seventh grade. So I didn't have any access to that stuff. But what was, this sounds like such a shitty question, but what was reception like in that time, like without the internet, like without having that, I don't want to say instant feedback because it's awful the way it is, but where you had to wait a month to find out.
Well, we got letters. We got a ton of letters
That's
because
right.
it was because the letters column, everybody wanted to be in the letters column. And so
Yeah.
and there was a kind of, I don't know if every office did it, but I think it was a pretty, kind of a thing that we do is you would take like some of the worst letters and the best letters, and you would balance because the writers usually did the writers page,
Mhm.
or you would at least go through the mail and then hand a stack. And you'd always make sure that somebody that didn't like the story or didn't like what was happening had a voice. Like
Right.
so you'll often read letters pages where you're like, oh, no one liked this comic, but that's because it can't be all like, we loved it.
Right.
And
But I have a feeling that today, with the immediacy that you're talking about, Vito, and
Mhm.
if there's a whole bunch of somebody doesn't like something, that might actually influence the production of a comic versus, oh, we're just giving a fair space to
yes,
pros
I
and cons.
absolutely agree. I think that there's a certain like paralyzing self-censorship that is taking place now where, you know, and I talk about this when I'm at Comic Cons and talking to young writers and artists. I'm like, do not look at the comments because you will
Mhm.
get paralyzed, and then you'll start to self-censor and you'll start trying to write to please people, and then that's not a good product. So I definitely recommend never looking. And there's not a lot of great comics journalism anyway. So, I love like Heidi and, the work she does. I love like certain writers who really get out there and are enthusiastic and get stories from the street. But a lot of it is just people saying, I hated this, without any even reasons why. It's not like,
Yeah,
you know,
or when a review is just a regurgitation of the plot, and you're
of
like,
the
that wasn't a
plot.
review,
Yeah.
I
And
mean,
it's just,
I got lucky recently. Some YouTube channel focused on my comic, and it's gotten overwhelmingly nice, comments and reviews and stuff. There've been a couple of negative ones, and I've just chosen just to like let them stay. I'm not going to censor it anyway, but you know, let them stay and just sit there while
yeah.
the other people are like, interacting with me positively. I just
I naively didn't look you up. What is your comic?
Oh, it's called Stray. It's all right. You would love it.
Oh,
It's like Daredevil meets Nightwing,
oh,
basically.
really? Oh,
Yeah.
I will definitely check it out.
Don't make me blush, Anne.
Of course, I'm going to check it out.
But
I buy a lot of indie comics because I feel like that's my job now. I get a check from Marvel for something I do, and then I go to the local comic shop and I'm like, I find something and not I don't I find something that is not getting attention.
yeah,
hmm
Like you don't
hmm
want to, there's no reason to buy I mean, I love like Scott Snyder's work. I think he's an absolutely brilliant writer, but he doesn't need my support. You know? It's sort of like you have to like find people. And that brings, Dean and I were talking about this new, what was it? It's a new, they want to do like a little work thing in Brooklyn that,
Oh, so I actually wrote that in my notes for other topics after we talk
yeah,
about
yeah.
you and whatnot.
Because
But
I liked them, and then they wrote back, "Wow, you
oh,
liked us." And then I wrote back, "What can people do?" And
right.
I said, "We can do. I can come. I can donate comics. I can come in and do it, teach. I can do, guest whatever." And they're totally open to that, but they have to raise 100 grand.
So Vito, I think I sent you a link, but it's called the New York Working Cartoon Library. They're
Yeah,
seeking
yeah, yeah,
100,000 endowment, and I think it's a long game. Like I think it's through spring 2027. If they don't get
yeah.
it, everyone gets their money back. But that's the goal, and it's always interesting to me when and we could also throw in Bodega or Beck, Brooklyn. What's it called? BEC. What is it standing for? The one that James
Oh
Tinian
yeah.
is
Oh yeah.
underwriting,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
The bodega is called Bodega,
Brooklyn Expo, some comics.
something like that.
Yeah.
And like basically, I think it's a response to the loss of CAB, the Comics Arts Brooklyn that was around for 5 or 6 years, whatever. And I know we also have Bix, which is Brooklyn Independent Comic Showcase that St. Mark's does. But I think they're hyper focusing on the fact that Brooklyn is lousy with cartoonists and comic book makers, you know, like a ton of, and I hope that that's true, that they are trying to celebrate that Brooklyn voice, as it were, or New York voice, you know.
I mean,
and that would be
Manhattan
cool.
has nothing.
Manhattan.
Manhattan has nothing. We have Mocha.
Oh, you mean in terms of right, having a comic show, right?
Yeah,
Hey.
but I think there is a Brooklyn voice. I think there is a boroughs voice.
Well, also people go to Brooklyn because originally it was just cheaper than Manhattan. Now I think it's more expensive than Manhattan.
And Desert Island, that great comic shop, they publish, don't they publish too? They do great stuff.
They do a regular paper, newspaper type of thing.
Stuff.
Yeah, I actually love when there are certain retailers that are publishers as well. Floating something comics, what's it called? They did Chuck Forsman, I think. Floating World, I think, is a publisher.
Right.
And I have talked to Nick Purpura, maybe not Ron Hill, about JHU Comics doing some kind of a publication, but they always look at me like, yeah, that's a great idea, but we would lose our shirt on that, you know, kind of thing.
Speaking of, Staten Island just had their show this week.
That's right.
New York High School show that they do every year.
With Evan Dorkin, I think was
Evan was there, but it's done through New York High School, which is literally right down the street from the show.
You know, it's funny. It would be fun to have a borough competition. You know,
why not, man? Like hip hop, like what hip hop do with East Coast, West Coast. You know, like
the last remaining Manhattanites, of which there's me and who else? Derek Jones in Harlem.
I think Kavanaugh is in.
Terry
Kavanaugh's at Upper West Side. You got Peter Cooper at 99th Street.
Peter Cooper. So there's still a few of us.
Dan Slott in Manhattan, I think, still.
Dan Slott.
So we could do some Bronx, Staten Island, Brooklyn, Manhattan.
Or like Warriors, like we have some,
like that. Yeah, exactly.
That would be awesome. No, I mean, and so the reason I brought that up, and we were talking when you brought up the New York Working Cartoon Library, which I think is interesting, and what can we do? What services can we offer, or insight?
They seem very open. I said I'll donate indie comics, and I'll go teach, and I'll guest whatever they want. It's easy. Just go to Brooklyn and help. But they have to get the $100,000.
Right.
And that's only for 18 months rent. So it's not really that sustainable.
Right.
Because, rents are so high. I mean, I think that's a Brooklyn rent.
Yeah, no. And it's funny because I know we have a new mayor, Mamdani, and we're seeing how that's going to go. But I keep my fingers crossed for the fact that his girlfriend is an artist and has dabbled in comics and cartooning with some of the locals.
We could have gotten her for the.
I know. So what I'm hoping is that there's a little bit of an influence there, and that we will get some love in New York for comics.
If you and Doug, if this book is successful and there's a second volume, then we up the game, and then we up the game. Then we could even do the 5 boroughs.
That's right.
We would ask Mondami's wife to.
That's right.
We'll figure out a way to get to her.
Yeah.
Her to represent Manhattan.
That's
represent Gracie Mansion.
Yeah. It's fun. It's funny. Glenn Head just had a birthday in Brooklyn Bridge Park. I was hanging out with him and Jody Esposito, who's coming out with a graphic novel called, I think, The Master, about Bernie Krigstein. And I think he was his teacher or something like that. And God. So you get to tell the life story of Bernie Krigstein.
Wonderful.
But Glenn, who I reached out to for real life comics only in New York, and was just too busy. But later on, when he saw like what had been produced, he was like, God damn it.
Yeah.
I want to be in that.
I think the first volume is going to have that reaction.
I really hope so.
And because I flipped through the mock-up, but also everything you guys are posting. they're really good stories. Like
Yeah.
no, so it's no one's going to be disappointed that they
No,
this
no,
up,
I think it's a
you know?
winner, and it just comes down to promotion, letting people know
Yeah.
about it. As sick and tired as people get of like seeing the same images or the same title or like who the hell, like, sorry, that's the business of it right now.
Yeah.
That's
It
what we have
is.
to do,
In
you
fact,
know?
you're expected to, and it's even in some contracts, you're expected to do your own social media. I remember when, I left comics to go, teach film in Haiti and do a bunch of other stuff. When I came back, I was sort of shocked. It was like,
Mhm. Mhm.
you're expected. And in fact, people were saying things to me like, well, don't you have a social media person and I see now
Mhm.
that people have social media people. If you
Mhm.
want to really, and I'm very impressed with the new Daredevil writer, Stephanie Phillips.
Oh my gosh, she is going to town online.
She dresses cool. She does lots of podcasts. She's so nice. She's super talented. And she really, it's not just buy my shit. It's
Yeah,
I'm devoting this little clip to a woman comic guy
sure.
or a teaching moment. And so that's how to do it. I don't know how she has the time. She goes to all these cons, she writes
Yeah.
she does the
Well,
social media.
I was having a little email exchange with a friend who has a Kickstarter project right now. And what he did is what we all do when we have a Kickstarter is like, hey, do you mind sharing it or saying something about it or just even posting the link or whatever? And it's a cool project. And I said, sure. And then I went to go post it on my social media, meaning Facebook and Instagram, Twitter, which I hate, Blue Sky, all this stuff that I'm on, even though I really just mostly engage on Facebook and Instagram, plus my Substack newsletter. And I went to tag him and I went to tag the person that the project was about, and there was no social media. I'm like, footprint. I'm like, what? How are you doing this?
Yeah.
How are
Yeah,
you trying to publish in the modern world today without social media? That and he said to me, yeah, we're not doing so well. I was like, no wonder.
no
No,
wonder. Yeah,
I'm
you
sorry,
can't.
but you have to have
You
presence
have to.
online.
You have
That,
to.
and you have to have that heart of a hustler too. Like you can't just expect everybody else to take
No.
up your. It's nice when people take up your flag, but like you got to hold it too.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
it's so Vito. It's funny you should say that because we're talking about real life comics only in New York. That I thought with 51 stories and 66 creators, the $20,000 goal that we wanted initially would have been done in the first 5 days,
Yeah, same.
and it went to like 23,000 at the end, right?
And
But I
it's
was
still taking,
shocked. I was
like
shocked, and like people were like, "Oh, you did it great." I was like, "No,
You
we barely
didn't
squeaked by on
barely squeak
the
by, but
smaller amount of money that we need more money than that,
right.
but whatever. We have a publisher that
did
is going to do the
did
job.
the A-listers help?
Some of the A-listers, and I don't even like to say that, like
But no, I know what I
whether
mean.
you're an A-lister or not,
People
like
that have a huge amount of followers. I
you mean to
mean,
have followers, right? Right.
yeah,
That's what you mean in terms of A-list. It's like people who actually. So some
people
of
who
them did, and
actually,
then some of them didn't, and I'm like. And it wasn't even one post. And we would send out like a couple little reminders. Hey, you might want to share this with your friends and
Yeah.
family and peers and fans or whatever. And it's just like sometimes I think people can be shy and don't feel comfortable promoting their work. I feel
well, it
like,
depends on who they are. I mean, I don't really see Ben Catcher on the
no,
social
I don't think you
media.
promoted it,
And I see Roz Chast all the time, but
right. I don't think
maybe
yeah.
yeah, but maybe she's only posts her own. I don't understand really. And but I think that for what people do now, they have assistants and they have social media people that are running the whole thing, and they have somebody
Well, Vito,
film.
who do you have doing yours?
I've never had
Sadie.
anybody. I've never
You
had any.
you
I've
know,
never had anybody. I've never had an agent. I've never had any of that stuff.
while we're talking, I'm
Now I
sitting here
have,
going,
well, now I have Jim McLaughlin at Hero Initiative
"Oh
books
yeah,
cons
he's
for me
great."
because I honestly didn't even know how to go to a con anymore. Like I used
Mm,
to go to the cons, when like Karen Berger would fly me out to San
right.
Diego Dark Horse but I didn't really, I didn't really know how to. And then one day somebody was like, you can make money at cons with your signature.
Mm.
And then
Mm-hmm.
Jim offered to book me because I didn't even know how to do that. Call up
Mm.
this person and, so
Mm-hmm.
I'd started doing Galaxy Cons as one of his like
Mm-hmm.
things. And it's like, and then you get to go, and then you don't have to say, I deserve this. I deserve a flight and a
Mm-hmm.
hotel.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like doing that.
I know, I know. But also, when you realize that you do panels and you do other things that help promote the form or uplift, young creators, rookies and other veterans, like there is a value to that. And I realize, oh, I should get a flight and a hotel if I'm going to do three
Yeah.
panels at a
And
con
yeah, and I do a
and
lot.
donate art and
I'm
stuff.
going to Heroes Con and I'm doing a panel each day I'm
There
there.
you go. And
And
so
it's
that's,
it's like the game, like maybe this is boring, but the game, it depends on where you are in your career and whether you're getting work. Some people go there because they have to make book, they have to sell a certain amount of sketches. And there's so many old timers that they don't have a pension, they can't get work anymore. There's so many people that are just there to stay engaged and, sign
yep,
books and make some money. And,
yep.
it's like the con circuit is picking up on the slack on the lack of a writers union in comics. If we had started a writers union back in the day when there was power, there's no
Mm-hmm.
power anymore as in writing. You couldn't get a writers union now. But if it had been started back in the day and there were residuals and pensions and things like because I was in the Writers Guild as when I was writing screenplays.
Mm-hmm.
And, they have your back. And I
Mm-hmm.
get royalties. The one film I had made, I still get royalties
Mm-hmm.
because of the
Mm-hmm.
Writers Guild.
Mm-hmm.
You do have to, that was a complicated one because I was in the Writers Guild, but there is a minimum you have to make. So you have to sell a certain amount of screenplays a year in order to stay in the Writers Guild.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I ended up,
When we met officially, I want to say you were an editor of High Times at the
oh,
time,
maybe, yeah, because, yeah, I
and
figured,
I don't remember exactly. Was it at a party? And I know you introduced me to Buffalo Mailer,
yeah,
and
yeah. No, I
um
wasn't working in comics for well, I was always working in comics, but sometimes it was stuff that was really stupid that I would take a gig. Like I did True Blood for a while, and that was like, you do the best you can. I love the artist was Michael Gatos,
Oh
oh
yeah.
yeah,
know,
Gatus.
and it was fun, but in the end, it's like, you're beholden to somebody else's universe in a way that isn't fun like the Marvel universe.
Mm,
And
mm-hmm,
so, I would do these gigs that were just kind of like side hustles
mm.
while I was moving from Scenario Magazine. It's weird, my resume. I went from Covert Action to Lies, which is about the CIA, to Lies of Our Times, which is about the biases in the New York Times, to Prison Life magazine, which gave voice to the convict, to Scenario, which was film magazine, then High Times, and then Stop Smiling, which I loved. It was a literary magazine. So in my magazine years, I didn't. So you met me when I was very briefly at High. I was only the editor of High Times for a
Yeah,
year.
and I remember you invited me to a High Times party. I guess it was a launch for an issue, and I brought Jonathan Ames, who at the time had was on the wagon. I think he's on the wagon now, whatever. But we get in there, and the entire room is fumigated with pot.
Yeah.
And me and Ames go up to the top, and we're looking out windows, like it was this tall building, and we're
Yes.
looking out, just staring and wavering. And suddenly he got the munchies, and I got the munchies, and we were like, "Let's go to a diner. Let's get
Uh,
some food." And
yeah.
it was fun, but we got super high
Everybody's, yeah. Well,
without smoking anything.
that was why it was a hard magazine to put out because everybody was wake and bake, and it's really hard to. It's like if you were doing instead of High Times, you were doing like drunk quarterly, monthly. It's like it's not easy. Like you could probably put out a magazine on speed, on Adderall,
I was gonna say
you know,
cocaine daily.
cocaine, but
The
not
Cocaine Chronicle.
not train wreck and wheelchair pot.
No,
Wake and
no, no,
bake.
no. My God. But also, what I love what you've done recently, and I actually put this in one of my comic books because you had told me once. I don't necessarily say you put this in practice on a regular basis, but it was the sentiment that I love so much, and I put it in my Red Hook X Dean Haspiel comic, where you said that you basically like to have something cooking on the stove at all times,
Yeah.
just in case someone comes over.
Yes.
Like
Yeah.
without a plan, the fact that there would be food if
Yes.
someone was a knock on the door or a random phone call from a pal, I happen
No,
to be in the neighborhood.
I started that practice when I was an art major in SUNY New Paltz in a dorm room. I
Mm,
had a hot plate and I always had a pot of soup cooking, and it became like a hang, and people
hmm
would come by and they would come by and add to the soup. And
mm.
it's like, and
But it
during
also speaks to your salon thing that you started to
yeah,
do, which, God, that I know it got unwieldy, but I miss it, and I know
I
we've been
know.
talking about
Well,
doing it again.
we can bring it back. The problem is so Dean and me, Dean, a bunch of people, Fred Harper, there were a bunch of comic people, a bunch of comedians doing a salon here in my space.
That's right. You remember you
But
telling me about that.
it got
'Cause-
too big. It became like, and I didn't know anybody, and I that was coming, and they weren't there to create shit. They were there to party, and it became too
What
much,
Yeah, what started to happen is not only was it a party thing, which by the way, BYOB, and half the people don't BYOB, so they're just
yeah,
drinking what you brought or whatever.
yeah,
And then the other thing was uh comedians were using it as, and if it was a Friday, Saturday night, I get it, but they're bouncing around to other clubs, and this was like one of the clubs to go to. So they weren't
yeah.
even, they would do their set and be out. And you're like, what about
Well, I
me?
think
Or what
that
about what we're doing,
it was
kind of a thing.
really fun. It was really fun. I did it for 2 winters, I think, and it was super fun until it got too big, and then we shaved it down, and it became I just saw Nero last night,
Mm,
girl that we did we would
the reading of her short film.
yeah, we would do readings of short films or
She did
short
a great documentary called Charm Circle. That's
yes.
basically the Jewish oh, what's it called? Something Gardens.
Oh yes, it's the Grey Gardens.
Grey Garden. It's the Jewish Grey
Yeah.
Gardens,
Oh, okay.
But
which you'll see. It's great.
to me, that was fun. And it was us reading each other's scripts. We, the writers or whoever was there, just acted. And we had Amy Gossels, who's a casting director. She even brought in real actors so that we could do this.
So
And
like a table read kind of thing?
no, we would do props. Like if somebody was supposed to be in a clothing store, I'd put up the ladder and hangers and hang clothes. So because actors need something to
Right.
grab and hold, they need the props. It's just like I studied acting at HB Studio, and that you need, even if you pick up a rubber ball and bounce it during a scene, you need something, you
Mm-hmm.
know. It's
Mm-hmm.
you
You
don't the
studied
table
with
readings, and because I did the fifth night for many years at the New Eureka Poets Cafe, we did staged cast readings every Tuesday night, and they were a blast. But the actors, we would do a run through, and then anything the actors could grab onto, they'd do. If they
right.
changed a hat, if they looked at each other, table readings are very like
Right. Like
they're
just
they're
not
past, yeah,
Yeah, what you're talking about, Anne, was more performative. Like even if they were reading
yeah,
from the script, they would take some time to read it and try to practice it among themselves, or if you felt like lightly
yeah,
directing or whatever. So we all had like scenes that were read or whatever, or short stuff. And then actually I was gonna bring this up at the end, but I was just hanging out with owner Tukel, the
yeah,
filmmaker, and we were shooting a short thing for a movie he just made. And owner invited me, and I actually spent the last couple of days writing a couple of short scenes to a thing that he's been doing at a place called Pinky Swear that I
Oh
think is in the
yeah,
Lower East
I
Side.
went to one of those.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, and
Okay,
he asked me to write something or perform
right.
something, but I went the first time I went. I was double timing because I was also at a performance on the Bowery.
Right, right,
So I
right.
was kind of ran from one to the other.
Sure, sure.
But it
Well,
was
that's New York
really
City,
fun.
baby. But I'll say this Tuesday night, this coming Tuesday,
He's
which
got
will
one,
be
yeah.
the night after
This
we
comes
air
out.
this
Yeah.
episode, is a Pinky Swear, and I got a piece in there. Whitney has a piece, Whitney
Oh, cool.
Matheson. But you should absolutely,
I
uh,
can't make it that night, but
but in the future.
yeah, in the future I'll do something. I would love to do it when you and Whitney and friends are there,
But also, we should. Uh, I would love to do something at your loft. I know
Yeah,
traditionally during the summer you're upstate a lot, so
yes. Yeah,
it's
but
harder to
I
do.
come down. I mean, I just came down. I had to do a wonderful movie at Anthology. I did a Q&A for last night,
Oh,
and I
cool.
was in a documentary film about June Leaf and Robert Frank. So I went from getting shot to presenting to, I
Wow,
come down every week for something,
that's great. That's
So
great.
we could still pick a night and do
We
it.
we can figure it out and make it happen.
Yeah.
I just think it's important, and I forget like we have the power to do this. I mean, Vito, I
Well,
wish if I lived down the
also,
block from you, we would be doing
Oh, I would. Yeah, every
meeting the
day.
other kind of
no,
like
and I
locals.
honestly, I think the problem with this particular winter, because we kept talking about doing the workshop, but it was a brutal cold winter, and
Yeah,
people just
yeah.
didn't want to go to another borough. And
hmm
it's very
hmm
hard to drag everyone to Manhattan, you know,
From
just like
Brooklyn, yeah,
Which
yeah,
is
yeah.
or
weird
Brooklyn.
because Manhattan's so central to everything.
But
But
also,
it's
it's true.
still,
But then the F train's never working. Or the trains are
Right.
never
yeah,
Yeah.
working, and you're
yeah,
getting screwed. And then you're like, oh, you can only go until 9 o'clock to this stop, and then
yes,
after 9 o'clock on a Friday night, you're not going home at 9 o'clock. To
Oh
try to
my
take the.
goodness. I
So
saw
then you're
something.
doing car services that are like so expensive.
I saw
And I'm always on
something
my bike.
on
What do you say?
I saw something on Instagram, like just in the same vein, where this kid is like an honor student at Baruch, and they don't have a way because like the LIRR is not running or
yeah,
something.
it's not running.
So
Yeah,
Well,
he's basically homeless because he can't
yes,
go home and he's got to
right.
yeah.
study. And it's like they're not providing. It's so weird. Like,
But meanwhile, a truck ran over a manhole, unloosened it, and a woman parked her car, fell in the manhole, and
And
died.
she fell into what they called was a giant rat cave.
Oh,
good.
was it? I didn't read
Yeah,
that
there was
far.
one line in the story, and I was like, "Wait a minute, what's a giant rat cave?"
Ah,
That poor woman.
There's
You know,
your next Daredevil story, Ann.
she
she was screaming, "I'm
she
dying!
was
I'm
screaming,
dying!"
"I'm dying, I'm dying!" And
I
by the
thought you were
time
joking.
No,
she
Oh
was
man,
look
screaming,
it up. This happened yesterday.
it
I gotta
happened
look.
yesterday, and they lowered a ladder down, but it was too short. They couldn't get to her.
That's awful.
You know,
Yeah, it is
But now we
awful.
know it's sort of like weird because, there's this fear in Manhattan because, whenever there's the open doors for the conveyor belt going down to feed some restaurant, all over
hmm hmm
Manhattan.
Mhm.
hmm
And, there's in the back of your head, you're always like, manhole cover, steel doors are open. And you're
Oh
always
yeah,
like thinking, any minute, I'm going to just be the one to plummet, you
Oh
know?
yeah.
And now Manhattan, I don't know if it's like that in Brooklyn, but nobody obeys the red lights anymore in terms of the electric bites. They just don't, they zoom right through.
oh yeah.
Many times a day, I just turn around and somebody's like almost hit me. It's just nuts. They're
Yep.
not they're not bothering to ticket anybody who is on an electric, and they're like motorcycles.
No, I'm so angry about e-bikes because I bike every day. I pedal, and they look at
Yeah.
me like, "What kind of archaic thing are you on?" And
Yeah.
I'm like, "You belong with the cars, all right, buddy?
Yeah,
Like
you
you shouldn't
belong
be
with
on
the
the bike
cars.
lane, you know?" And that's a whole other conversation of
I
like,
know we're so far away from comics for a comic podcast.
no, we talk about everything here.
Oh,
Yeah.
you do? Okay.
Of course, like
But the
uh,
other weird thing is that there's this poet that I like, and we started working on a script to shoot up at my property upstate. It'll
mm,
probably never happen, but this is one of these weird things. It's like our go bag thing. It's
hmm
like sometimes you collaborate on something and it gets a certain momentum, but you really need somebody that's going to go, I got the camera, let's shoot it,
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you got to have that person
Yeah,
that's the go-getter, like, and then, or it could be you, of course, but also you
I'm
need
not
an
a go-getter.
ally in collaborative stuff. Go bag. It's funny. I meant to tell you, I took the parts that I had written and I reinterpolated it into
Oh yeah,
another
do a
thing.
horror thing, right?
I did a horror thing that basically involves horny zombies. It talks a little bit about AI and about a guy who has the craziest crush in the world to with for a woman who will never love him. So
Oh,
it's kind of a bunch of stuff going on.
So
So
it's an
I did.
autobiography.
well, to give you, Vito, to give you the background is that at one of these salons, it was you, me, and somebody else too. Wasn't it supposed to be wasn't it supposed to be Denny's kid? What's his
Oh,
name?
Larry. No, no,
Larry.
I don't know if Larry was ever going to be involved in our
I think I
collaboration.
think
But
we were
Larry was
thinking,
what had a script that he I think he
yes.
shared with you. Yeah, 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 yeah.
And we were thinking about like you know, you know how there's writers' rooms on TV
Yeah.
shows, and I like the idea of a writer's room because you just have a lot of players and you have to like give up your ego and you have to, work towards a common thing and it's fun, it's
Yep.
collective. And the idea was that there would be like we started with the idea of a go bag and like what do you have in your go bag?
Mm.
What's your go
What's
bag and what's happening around you right now that you
what's
need a go bag,
yeah, and
so we
started.
were playing and it was a lot of fun, going back and
Yeah,
forth. And I
yeah,
think we also were talking about with Fred Harper, and maybe something
yes,
was an anthology, as a comics anthology we were talking.
yes. Because Fred, yes, that's right. But yeah, because and it's this is the problem. Like, there's always these things where people are like, "Yeah, let's." That's why I'm so impressed that you and Doug Latino actually fucking finished the idea.
Yeah.
It's like it's really hard because none of us artists we're not like go-getters. We're not because that's why films
Well,
have.
there's so many things to go get, so it's
Yeah,
like
there's so many
when
things
do you
to go
do it,
get.
you know and when do you have the time, and like speaking of going back to doing the homework for an 8-page story, which is exhausting because you're
Yeah.
not getting paid nearly enough for the work you put in, right?
Well,
um
and for me at this point, they're labors of love. I do need the
right,
cash, how else I don't have a pension, I
right.
write till I'm 90 if I make,
Well, but
um,
that also requires you being in the know, not only being an optic in a comic book shop, right? Like, oh, there's
yeah.
Anna says she wrote something, but like when editors or leaders of companies move on and you don't know who's the next person at all, you never met them, you never
Yeah.
heard of them, and now they're the person you need to appeal to. How do you do that? Like that's the same
Well, and
question for the
also
rookie.
losing Karen Berger's, because Dark Horse was bought by a company and then Mike Richardson was fired and Dark Horse kind of. So, who knows what will happen to Burger Books. So I think Karen is probably moving into like working with a real publishing house, like a
Hmm,
book publishing
hmm,
house. But,
hmm.
my next graphic novel with her, who she developed it and she believed in it. And then she said, I don't know what's happening with Dark Horse. Go try and sell it somewhere else. And I couldn't even get my foot in the door.
Right,
It was
right.
just weird. It was like, I don't know how to do this. And you somebody would read it and they would have these like sort of like, well, this feels more like a graphic novel than a series. And or
What,
this
but you know
feels
what we don't have? You know what we don't have when I think about it? Think about the fact that a talk show, right? What it does well is to promote the new stuff that's coming out, but then they would bring out like Shelley, my godmother Shelley Winters, who probably didn't have a movie at the time, but she had stories and she had,
yeah.
so you need like comics needs a Merv Griffin, it needs a Johnny Carson, you know, where they remind people who what you've done and who you are,
Yeah.
I mean,
because and then
that's
what's your
Jimmy Aquino,
insight,
really.
like a Jimmy Aquino,
Right.
right?
He'd be
Like,
perfect for something like that.
yeah, yeah, totally. But so I mean that's part of the problem is you disappear and then you got to like start over again. Like
You got
what?
you always have to reinvent constantly. I mean, it's funny because when I was at that Marvel party talking to the people that had just gotten fired, I was like, hey, we all got fired in 1994. You know,
Yeah.
it was like Marvel went bankrupt.
Mhm.
And it was brutal. It was brutal because
It's
that
it's
a
so
lot of
weird.
people just especially like there were colorists who didn't know how to roll it like Christy Shield, Max in the comics, she rolled it into a fine art career. I can't
Oh
call
yeah.
comics anymore. I'm going to do this. But letterers, where are they going to go? You
Hmm.
know, you'd have to
Hmm.
roll it into a graphic design career, you know, or
Yeah.
Right.
something.
Right.
So there were inkers, man. You know, inkers really were hurting. Like that. So I was saying to these editors that had lost their jobs, I was saying, you have a chance now to reinvent yourself. You know, your
Hmm.
skills, your editorial skills are valuable. Go hit up the publishing house, you know,
Hmm.
because
Hmm.
if you need in our business the ability to keep reinventing yourself, you know,
Hmm.
as a writer, as an artist, as a whatever, because it's like, you know, and I think that when you think about the other industries that have already been hit by Spotify wrecking the music industry and,
Yeah.
you know, and now
Or
AI,
streaming destroying
yes,
basically
streaming
TV and
destroyed.
cinema, how we
Yes,
consume that now, you know.
exactly. And so now it's
It's
AI.
the platforms that, but also you have to be hip. Like in other words, the older we get, like it's getting harder for me. I don't know about you, Vito, but like keeping up with what's going on, you know,
Well,
like I
Just,
remember
don't.
you
just
sent me an email a couple of days ago about who was nominated for the Eisners, and
yeah.
we were just like, I don't. Am I supposed to know whoever all these people are? I don't
No,
know if
I
I
get
have the
these things
ability.
where you're supposed to vote, like, you know,
Right.
the Harveys, the whatever, and I have to do my duty to the comic industry. But I was like, well, how do I find out? Because the Harveys are weird. It's like
Harveys are
this
very
month
weird.
to this month, like, and it's not,
And you can't figure out like what came out. Like I'll read something and
I
it came out
know.
5 years ago, and I thought it came out this year, you know,
Right.
or
You have
whatever.
to Google what came out, and then you look for, and then you're like, well, I haven't read any of these, but you still, feel like I have an obligation to.
I same.
So it's hard, and I forget what we were talking about.
No, no, we were just talking about like trying to keep up with, in order to keep yourself
Yes.
relevant, you either have to do a Kickstarter every twice, two or
Couple
three
months.
times a
Yeah.
year, and
Oh,
be
this
like,
is
I'm
what
out
I was
there.
going to say.
Okay.
This is a weird one. This is a really weird ethical thing. I think that the generation coming up is not going to have any problem with using AI. And
They
they're
don't
going to
know.
be
They don't
writing their
now.
they're going to be writing their stories, making films, making their artwork with AI. They're going to develop a relationship with AI is going to be on their phone, and AI is going to know what they want, what their brain is like. AI is going to be helping them be creators. And us old timers who have a ethical problem, obviously, like there are great people in the industry who rant, like Bill Sienkiewicz, Molly Crabapple. There are people that are ranting against, and I feel like I love them for pointing out the issue, but there's no stopping it.
Right.
Oh, there is no
And
stopping
that's
it.
going to roll right over us because I
Right.
don't think kids that were raised inside the internet and now the added thing of AI are going to have any problem with using it
No,
for
they
creativity.
don't have a problem with it because it's fun and it's a tool and they get to do a ton of stuff.
Yes.
I do think I will allow the idea that, you know, we could have people who can write a really interesting prompt or a bunch of prompts. It's like DJing in a way, right? Like, you know, figuring out what works and come up with some stuff. I mean, I know Vito has, and I don't always agree with this, but Vito will have an idea as a writer for a character and then put these ideas into something
Gemini, I think, which is,
to get a sense of what it might look like.
and then I hand that
uh
I
off
don't
to an
even know what
artist.
Gemini is. What's Gemini?
It's Google's. I think it's Google's AI. But yeah, and then
So
I'll.
you can use it as a storyboard.
no,
You
no,
could, but I
well,
don't go that far. Like I just want a
no.
conceptual image that I like that I can't because my drawing ability is limited. Like what can I
But you're
present?
talking images though. It gives
Right,
you it
Yes,
gives you an image.
right. So I'll take like
it
the character
approximates an
design.
idea visually, right? And then he'll hand it off to the actual artist and then negotiate the design from this basis,
Right.
which, again, I don't know how I feel about that.
But
Sometimes.
it's interesting because I'm working on a story now that has a kind of complicated visual idea. And I'm pretty sure, and what I do is I do a image document. Every time I do a story,
Mm.
I really load an image document for every single page because a lot of times you're working with somebody, you're practically always working with somebody who doesn't live in New York. And
Mm,
so
I've
every
worked with people that
element,
live in Brazil. They don't know,
yeah,
like,
they
it's not
don't
that they don't
know.
know English. They don't know like culture references.
No. And so you're constantly loading. So I do it, and I always put a thing at the top. I swiped all these images from Google. Somebody took these photos, somebody owns them.
Mhm.
Don't swipe from that, just use it as inspiration. But this is what a turtle looks like, whatever it is. But also sometimes, like with the seeds, it was a conceptual thing. I'd say to David Aha, like, you know, because we were obsessed with hexagons,
Mhm.
I was like, a turtle's back has a hexagon, and I see here's an image of a cracked desert that looks like hexagons. So put
mm,
that on top of that,
mm,
and so I
mm,
would do that visual thing, and then David would go nuts and add more. And like the
mm.
bee, he was like, the bee, why don't I put an alien face on the back of the bee? And it just became
Hmm.
this wonderful, really
That's
fun
awesome.
thing. But but the like this idea in this story now, I know that it's going to be hard for editors and people to visualize.
Right.
So I was going to just draw it out with my stick figures, but I'm always embarrassed to send my stick figures, but I do it. When I did the Gotham Underground for Catwoman, I drew a schematic of where Phosphorus's lair was, where the Penguin's lair was. I did where everybody's lair was, and I sent that drawing to DC. They had their artist make it real with
Wow.
a real artist, so that so once in a while I embarrass myself,
Do you
but
know, I did something funny, almost similar to that in a script recently where I had a villain standing in front of like a projector, and I had to draw the table. Like, and I did it all in Photoshop. I just drew the table there, and I made colored circles. This is where everybody's seeing. And then I actually drew a little box here and like little. I was like, and this is this is the camera. This is how the camera's looking. So like when we move the camera this way, this is how it's going to look.
oh
So it's, you know, there are some things, again, like I don't mind I don't mind using AI because I know I'm not going to get paid for what my generation is. I'm just basically using it as, hey, Dean or whoever the artist is, this is an idea of what I would like to see
yeah,
represented. I know that you're an artist and I appreciate that you're an artist. I want you to just take that idea and run with it.
yeah,
So this is my caveat. I
yeah,
would
yeah,
say let me as the artist first think of an idea,
Yeah, yeah, that's
yeah,
the
then
yeah.
show it to you, and then I get to be the artist that came up with my idea initially. And then if we're like, let's tweak this and this, and then allow me to go, what did you generate?
Mhm.
Show me what you were thinking.
Right,
Then I feel like at least I got mine in first
right,
before
right.
we
That's
tweak,
actually, yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think that's the way to do it. And it's funny because I'd done a 10-page Superman comic or a few years ago that was written by Sina Grace. And I have to admit, I was having some issues and problems with the script, but Sina is an artist as well.
Yeah.
And I said, you know what? Maybe Sina did some layouts or
Yeah.
some sketches. And I asked, and I didn't let my ego get in the way whatsoever. I was like, let's make the best comic book we can together. If you have some references and materials, let's look at it. I know that's not AI, but it's funny. I went to the bank this morning as I was coming out the bank, saw a person walking down the street, and it was the famous Jaws poster, like in the
Mm.
water, and you see the jaw, the thing, and then like a little woman swimming, right? But on top, instead of saying Jaws, it said Claude. And I
Uh,
was like, what's Claude? And
oh,
Claude is another
yes.
AI
It's Claude
thing.
is
And
Oh,
like it's
I see.
coming to eat you. It's
yes,
like
it
Gotcha.
coming
is
to get
coming to
you.
eat you. It's kind of, but it's like I don't know that how much energy should be spent getting angry that the world is changing around you. I love that, like I was saying, Bill Sienkiewicz, he'll get into it online with
I'm
everybody.
happy when other people acknowledge it and get pissed off. Cully
Yeah.
Hamner gets pissed off at everything, and I love that. Howard Chaykin. But I will say this: my getting angry is I can get mad and we can talk about it and go, "What the fuck?" But what I want to put out there is, okay, so there's all this other stuff happening, and then realizing, oh, I guess I just have to create stuff that you can only get from me. Let me promote
Right.
that kind of road,
Yes, but
like.
I also think that it's coming. There has to be an ethical way to use it in terms of like, you know, don't block your own voice by being lazy and letting someone and you
Right,
lose your
right,
voice if you use this
Yeah.
shit to write.
right.
Like what you were just saying about getting a drawing from an artist and you want to first do it. I don't want to turn to AI that has scraped the entire history of everything. I want to see what comes out because a lot of the way I write anyway, what it goes back to that having a bone to chew all the time is I come up with the idea that's usually comes from an emotion, anger, fear.
Mm-hmm.
I'm
Mm-hmm.
afraid of this. I'm angry at that. I'm
Mm-hmm.
something. And then it rolls in your head and you allow the universe to whatever you've run into on the streets and in your life,
Mm-hmm.
that rolls
Mm-hmm.
into it. And then when you go to sleep, your unconscious does the work for you.
Mhm.
And I keep a notebook by my bed and one of the things, and this is a great thing for young writers to do because I don't know if they're doing it, but you shut your phone off, you shut everything off, and when you're going to sleep, run the story through your head. Like
All
just
the
run
time.
it through your head. Make sure you're going to sleep with that story. And I'll run it through my head over and over and over until I make sure it's in my unconscious.
Mm-hmm.
And sure as shit, when I come out of a dream or I wake up, I'm like, bing, there's the answer.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
AI can't do that. It can't take my life yet, my life experience, my unconscious,
Your process.
and because it's about your process, it's about your genetics, your genetic makeup, what happened to you when you were a kid, how you find the moment of pain and happy and whatever. That's a fun way to work and let your unconscious be a better tool than AI.
It's funny. I've been doing that exact thing for the past 3 nights for an
Mm.
8-page story. Like I'm trying to plot this anthology, and I did the one story just like I sat down and I was like, I know the words I'm going to use to start the story. So let me just write those words down and then let it and then I just it's I weirdly I work dialogue first. So I
Hmm.
just wrote all the dialogue and then I broke it into pages. I'm like, good, that 8-pager's done. Let me think about that one 8-pager as I'm going to sleep. Last night, wrote the other 8-pager, like the second one, but not the third, or the third one, not the second one. So then I went back to sleep last night, and again tonight I will do the same thing because
Hmm.
I'm starting to process it a little bit because I'm trying to. I've always played movies in my head. Like I'm either a frustrated musician or I'm a frustrated filmmaker, one of the two, and I always see everything as if it's on a screen, like when I'm going to sleep. So I'm just playing, the movie in my head and just letting my movie just figure it out. Oh, Dean, yeah, this is
Dean's doing it. Dean's going to do a Burt Reynolds, for us
Playgirl
here.
shoot.
He's going to pull his shirt up and he's going to do but yay. But it's funny because getting back to the bone, I mean, if I don't have a gig, like if nobody, this has become a real problem because I want to make my own shit now.
Mhm.
I want to write scripts. But I have trained my brain to only be able to work if I know there's cash.
If there's money at the end of it,
And they
yeah.
used to call that a check check chasing hack back in the day.
Hmm.
Always a check
Hmm.
chasing hack. But I think I've trained my brain because I've always had to make a living to be so like, I gotta pay the rent, I gotta eat, it has to have a payday. I've never had the privilege of just, time to just create, so and and then this weird thing, my brain strangely feels starts to like, what am I supposed to do with my brain if I'm not rolling a story
Hmm.
around?
Hmm.
And it's like,
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
so I got to retrain my brain yet again. I've retrained it to always work and now I have to retrain it again, you know.
It's funny you said it because I write when Vito said dialogue first, right?
Yeah, I don't take
I think
dialogue first.
I don't. I think I do more when it comes to comic books. I think about the plot, and if I can come up with a sentence or something pops in, I write it down, whatever. But I have written a lot of stuff that is dialogue first, and those become plays, right? They
Hmm.
don't become comics usually; they become plays.
That
And
makes
suddenly I was
sense.
like, "Wait, I'm writing a play all of a sudden? What the hell's going on?" Right? And so and I'm never making money. I've never made a dime off of the 4 produced plays or like these things I'm doing for Owner's Salon or whatever, or the stuff we've done. Like I'm not making, no one's making money,
Yeah, no
right?
one's getting
And
paid. Yeah.
so I do wonder, uh, I do wonder, like, what am I doing? Like the destination isn't a payday. It really is more like exercising and hoping that it'll have a destination where,
Yeah.
Right.
I always say that my work isn't done until you've received it for better or for worse, kind of a thing. So, maybe, and like, and then just to add another additional thing, uh, someone asked me recently, like, "Oh, you're going away for 3 days. Are you bringing a sketchbook with you? Because do you like to sketch all the time? Because when you're not drawing," I was like, "Are you kidding me? The more I could not be around an art table, I'd rather not be an art table. I don't like to draw ever." And I even joked. I said, "I think 99% of anything I've ever drawn got sold, and that doesn't mean it's good. It just means that I was doing it for the job,
For the job.
and I
But
would be a better artist if I had a sketchbook. I would be a much better
Yeah, I don't think
artist. I
I've ever
mean,
seen you with a sketchbook.
I don't have a sketchbook,
well,
like I don't do that.
I think that if I were ever to make my own comic or something, it would be much the way, because I started out as a fine artist.
Right.
And the other day, and I did paintings and I did art. It's up on the walls here. I did lithography and I did all kinds of stuff. But I think because my hands have lost their
Yeah, I
muscle
know what you mean.
memory of drawing. When I go to draw now, I'm like, why can't I draw anymore?
Hmm.
Like,
Hmm.
because it's a skill you have to practice every fucking
It's
day.
like guitar. It's like people play guitar every day,
Yeah, I
like
mean, this piano behind me, I used to play piano. Now I can sit down at the keyboard and play only like going back to when I first started when I was like 11.
hmm.
And
Hmm.
or suddenly sometimes my fingers will have a muscle memory and they'll be like, "Oh yeah, I know this riff from Furelisi,"
Right,
whatever.
right, right,
But it's
right.
like pathetic. And my
Yeah.
skills have become pathetic in a way that's just embarrassing to me because I used to be able to draw. So I think that
But you
because
feel confident about your writing. You feel confident if somebody said to you, "Write me a story," you don't feel anxiety about that, right?
no, none at all.
Necessarily.
Not at all, because I've always written, especially as a journalist, and also there has to be the passion. Like
Hmm.
I think my favorite thing I've ever written is Gadoo Gadoo, which was a series I did for Highlowbrow about teaching in Haiti because
Mm.
I was so amped up and so excited, so passionate,
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
you have to be out in life, a lot of
Hmm.
to you have to be out in life to be passionate about something you're writing prose wise.
That's the difference between kids today and kids back then is because most of their stuff is inside.
Yes,
or
yes.
or screens or whatever. Like Whitney is always saying to me, you got to put in order to put out.
Yeah.
You meaning like you have to take stuff in, which is why she's always going to stuff, always seeing things, even
And
if it's hard to do.
she's very talented. She did a little script here at the Loft.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
It
yeah.
was
She's
really
super
good.
talented.
She's very talented. It's
She's
like,
very talented. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Absolutely.
And she doesn't really, it's, it's like, does she do a lot of stuff? I
She's
mean,
been writing. She just finished the first draft of another. novel right now
Oh,
that's
good.
amazing that I was privy to every chapter.
Okay.
She's constantly writing, and like, what she's dealing with, what we're all dealing with as freelancers, is corporations are now diminishing their talent pool because of AI and everything else that they're going
Right.
toward,
Well, and
like,
it's weird because we're in like a crisis on so many levels, and there's way more important crises than the one we're in. I mean, we are in a crisis in terms of there is an active intelligence that is crushing all artistic endeavors and
yeah,
taking them over. And, we're also living in a mafia-run administration, and we're headed
yep,
towards dictatorship and autocracy. And so you have like
yep,
so
yep.
many people that are, starving, or I mean, there's so many crises.
And did you see the recent thing that like is so crazy when you think about it? So Kickstarter a couple of days ago
Hmm.
basically said how we're changing our policies for not safe for work type material, right? And we're gonna kind of not, I won't say the word censor, but it was like the idea of maybe censoring your campaign to a certain level that neutered your campaign if it had sexy elements to it
You're
or all
kidding.
this stuff.
Oh
And
yeah.
oh no, it got really, and then everyone was like, wait a second,
That's
Kickstarter.
really
Like,
fucking ugly.
well, it's also like they were built on the kind of comics that Marvel and DC wouldn't publish, or a
Yes.
lot of like alternative, publishers wouldn't publish
But
And then
because
it
it
came
came from
out.
the creator.
It
but
came out
this
that it
is
was their parent company, or not the parent company, but
Their
the
payment processor,
that's it,
Stripe.
Stripe.
Now, the payment processor was the one that was dropping the hammer and being very puritanical and saying
Right.
you can't do these things. And by the way, a payment processor like Stripe is dictating like
well,
how
so
Content.
we
here
sell our
so that this
comics.
is another problem that I think that when I think about everything from Amazon, why is there no entity that's saying, fuck Amazon, here's a better, more ethical delivery system.
It's a
We're
Because
laziness.
and
nobody
so
wants
but
to
it
be ethical if they want to make money. That's the
but it's
problem.
but it's very like if Kickstarter is no longer going to be for us, then another platform has to be made. But it's like this mega fight that's going on right now between Sam Altman and Elon Musk and all these like entities that like it's like something happening on Mount Olympus, and
Oh,
it's
that's interesting.
and
Yeah.
and I have friends that are coders that have small ethical AI companies that are, about security and not giving data away, and they're not making it.
Right.
It's like as, way back in the day when Noam Chomsky wrote Manufacturing Consent about the gobbling up of media and how we were going to all lose our voices. It's like how does anyone fight this shit?
I
Which is
actually wrote.
why
No, well, there's the how, and then there's the who will fight
yes.
it. Like whenever, like I don't know what the hell just happened with the Trump administration with this 1.8 billion-dollar thing that's
No,
coming from our tax money.
going
But
to
I know that there's
going
nothing I can do. There's nothing
no,
that you can do or I can do. And
no.
I'm hoping and praying that we have people out there that know how to
But you
deal with
know
that
who
shit.
is fighting back? And I don't think they're not going to make it, but it's the police union is saying, fuck you. You're going to give $1.9 billion to the protesters that killed us.
Yeah. The
And
two two of the
Trump,
cops are suing the Trump administration.
yeah.
Right.
And if the police unions get behind that, but the police have been like squashed by ICE. Like
Hmm.
there are individual cops that are like trying to fight ICE and keep them out of a
Yeah.
small community's business. But
Yeah.
who knows like the cop unions should really get behind this. There were two
Mm-hmm.
cops that died,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
because Trump refused to call the National Guard in to stop it for his own personal ego that he thinks he didn't lose the election.
And
It's
he
like,
feels like these are loyalists, and everyone else is like
yeah,
if you weren't storming the Capitol on January 6th, you're against Trump. Which, by the
yes,
way, yes, of course, yes,
yeah.
but that's
So,
America, baby. Like what the hell,
Well,
that
going
anyway.
back to Kickstarter, the what I said to Dean last week was, if you really look into Stripe, you find out that they were funded by Elon Musk, they were funded by Peter Thiel, and a bunch of these really
Yeah.
unsavory people. So
Yeah.
then today, or maybe even last night, but I saw it today, they reversed course on the whole thing. Kickstarter did.
Well, Kickstarter did, but
Oh,
guess
really?
what? It doesn't change a damn thing because
True.
Stripe is still their payment processor.
Right.
So like what they said, Kickstarter was, okay, we went back to our old rules, but you could still be shut down at any point because
Right.
Stripe might decide that they don't like
But what about Indiegogo or some of the others? I mean,
Stripe, Zoop,
Stripe?
Stripe. Everybody
Oh,
uses Stripe.
But
are you
Zoop
kidding?
has I think it's called Pood or something like it's like
You
Zoop,
mean like it's the adult version
right,
of something,
that
right?
uses a different one. But yeah.
But still, man, like I don't know. I mean, it's
And the thing
already a
is,
hurdle.
Kickstarter's like built up a reputation for being what they are, what they do, that other people have followed their example basically. And there's more consumer trust in Kickstarter than there is in Indiegogo or
Yeah.
And
GoFundMe
community,
or
they
whatever.
built a culture in a community. Oh, they, meaning we, the people who have been there
Right.
doing this. And I came in just recently to the game, and you were doing it before me, Vito. You know, like
But we were both at that dinner, like many moons ago with the Kickstarter comics people, like back right after I did my first Kickstarter, I think.
right,
So,
right.
like, I mean, you were still a part of the community, according to, just by virtue.
Yeah, I mean, by showing up and skating around this new thing called crowdfunding,
Mm,
which is basically a pre-order. Go to Amazon, pre-order a book. It's the same idea,
right.
And
Yeah.
then with crowdfunding, you have extra perks where Annie can get like a drawing of a red hook on a piece of
Yeah.
cardboard. You know what I'm saying? Kind of a
And I
thing.
do.
So
I usually do get and you don't always get the perks. That's the weird thing. I remember
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
Kickstart supported a Tony Millionaire because I love his work, but
yeah.
I paid for a drawing that never came. And it's
See,
like, so some people just they fuck you over.
yeah. I mean, that's the bad reputation. And then like in terms of ethics, I don't know if this is me just throwing another thing, a wrench into but like I'll have people say to me, I won't subscribe to your Substack because Substack allows
Platforms
Nazis.
Nazis. Yeah.
And I'm
Yeah,
like,
but you
tell
know
me a
what?
platform that doesn't have
Yeah,
fucking
yeah,
Nazis in it.
exactly. So that's what I meant by Amazon. So there are things because there are things you can only buy online, and so you have to add in like, well, the how much am I going to increase my carbon footprint by
Hmm.
driving for 40 minutes to a store and back to get this
Hmm.
thing versus supporting Bezos's Amazon thing, which is, it's like, why should the consumer have to parse all this?
Right.
Like, well, I
All the
can't do
homework we're
that.
supposed to do every day, the homework of who's a
Yeah.
good person and a bad person.
Yeah, good. Yeah, which choice? How do I,
And by the way, they count on that too. They are counting on you to be too lazy
Be
to give a shit,
apathetic. Yeah.
but
to be
it's not,
apathetic.
it's also not laziness. It's like, it is worse for a carbon footprint for me to drive to the store and
Right.
fill my
Sure.
tank now that, of course, the gas is 4.50 a gallon. I mean, it's like, you do have to put all this stuff in, and so you do your little ethical thing. You go, I'm gonna wait until I have so much stuff and I can put it in one order so it only is one delivery truck, you
Hmm.
know,
Hmm.
but
3 weeks of comics right here that I picked up today, so I don't have to go back and
Right.
forth, just like you're
Right.
saying.
yeah, so you have to figure out these little ways, and it's just, you remember like when we started recycling. Everybody knows recycling doesn't really work. The amount of money to melt down that plastic and reuse it for something else, the amount of carbon released for the factories that do it, none of it makes sense. But it makes sense for kids to grow up feeling like they're separating paper from plastic from metal, and that they're going somewhere and it'll do some good that they do it. And
Right.
you know, and who knows when it's this thing of amateurization, when solar went from being not cost effective to cost effective. Recycling might not be cost effective yet, but it will be, and it has to be.
Hmm.
But then there's all this stuff. How do you go shopping when everybody puts everything in plastic? How do you deal with that big, worst, horrible thing that's happening? We're killing the oceans and nature and all that stuff. Like, but what's the alternative? What did we,
exactly.
how was
It's
I mean, you can't bury your
how was
head in the sand.
food packaged before there was plastic? I don't even
yeah.
remember.
Well, don't even get me into this conversation. I had lunch with Whitney today, and I don't know why this came up, but I still have a hard time with the leap between caveman and where we are today. Like, I don't know how did we get to how, with our technology, with like from writing on cave walls, like how did we get to I need to eat and sleep?
But
Forget like
that's
the
what
internet.
evolution is. Evolution
No,
is
I know, but I'm gonna know
error.
how many years was it real? Like
1 million.
people would get like a toothache and die, right? Like,
Well, they just had that. They just found that evidence of a prehistoric whatever. It's
Saw that.
it's a million years, I think, since the first hominoid.
but then we got to a certain part where it wasn't that long stretch of like, oh my God, now I can talk about it. Woo, let me complain. We have language in it now. Huh? How about that fire and that wheel, huh? Like,
yeah.
the internet.
But what's with the missing links are being filled in. Like they just found a prehistoric guy who had obviously had a tooth drilled.
Oh,
But it would have been unimaginable pain because there was no painkillers.
right,
So
right.
there was the theory in the piece I read was that they were just sort of way tougher. I mean, I was raised by a father who didn't use Novocaine, and he was like, when he had a cavity filled, and he would always say to us kids, like, you can handle the pain, and we'd be like, nah, I can't handle that pain. But
That's the worst pain in the world.
it's the worst pain in the world, but it's just like one generation back. My dad,
yeah,
who endured the pain, So I think that it's evolution.
I just have a tough time making that but when you say a billion years or whatever, I'm like, okay, that makes a little more sense. Or a million.
1 million.
I have theories about the whole thing.
The first hominoid creature was like 1 million years ago. I only know because I just looked it up for a comic book. I had a line where somebody says, well, 1 million years ago, the first, and I was just like, well, let me check that,
Yeah, right.
Somebody's going to call you out on
that stuff.
But think about the 20th century. We're in the 21st. The 20th century has the most things I think that happen to humans.
Yeah, and that is one
that
of
100 years right there.
Things is that they're saying that we are escalating faster than the human mind can cope. We can't cope with what's happening now. The human brain can't keep up with it. And so that's why it's not only galloping ahead of us, it's destroying us. And we're letting it happen and can't stop it because of a bunch of egomaniacal dudes. Sorry, I don't think there's any.
And nerds.
And that are just saying, bring it on. And now it's going to become a NIMBY thing, because we're going to have to build all these big power centers and all these lithium plants, all this crap. And everybody's like, not in my backyard. But
did you see the movie Eddington?
Yeah, I really liked it because it faced head on.
I liked it. I know Vito didn't like it as much.
On both sides.
Yes.
Yeah, because it's like there's just as many raving lunatic blue people.
Oh, absolutely.
Or red people.
Absolutely.
I wanted to ask Ann something because she brought up something funny earlier about the piano and that when she plays, she can only play a song from when she was like just learning. Was that accurate? Did you grow up Catholic?
Did what?
Did you grow up Catholic?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Conservative Catholic. But my father was a scientist, and so there was a wink, wink, nudge, nudge. There's also this origin of the species and evolution. And I hate religion because it doesn't make the fact that this world is controlled, this country's controlled by people that think the world was created 6,000 years ago, not 1 million years ago or 1 billion years ago, is just so stupid.
Yeah. But the reason why I bring it up is because, like, when you talked about playing the piano, it reminded me of going to church, like a Catholic funeral. And I haven't been to church in I don't know how long, but like I knew when to stand up, I knew when to sit down, and
Oh
it's
yeah.
just like, oh, like brainwashing.
No, so I spend a lot of time now with my elders. My dad's, I mean, I don't spend enough time with my dad. He's 97. My aunt, I'm just, I'm the bad kid. I don't help that much, but I'm stepping up my game a little bit. My favorite, wonderful, brilliant aunt, Jen, I'm starting to go visit her, and she's religious. And so we went to mass like the last time I was there, and that thing you just said, I walk in the church, I automatically
Yeah,
go, and then I go for the dip of the water, and I don't even remember what the water is or why I'm dipping my finger in the water. And then the ritual of the
right.
what they're saying, I knew when to kneel and when to stand, and then when they start doing either the Our Father or Hail Mary,
Mhm.
I it just comes out of my mouth. It just
It
happens.
just it did like
It's muscle memory or something.
yeah, yeah. The other question though, the other thing I was wondering was, do you have to be a good Catholic, or do you have to be Catholic at all to write Daredevil?
Well, it's funny because you know Walt and Weezy are so brilliant, the Simonsons.
Mhm.
Walt will say that he considers the 80s the second golden age of comics, and Weezy once said, lapsed Catholics make good comics. Like they always would come up with something that a brilliant thing that I would never forget. And that's a Wheezy thought
That's
that,
great.
you know,
I'm going to ask a fan question, and I think you kind of answered it. I didn't realize that Typhoid Mary had already appeared in television via Iron Fist. You said, I think,
yeah.
right? So I haven't seen that. But the when we were at the Daredevil party, the actress that plays the psychiatrist in Daredevil now, who seems to be having if you've seen the season, she's kind of being manipulated or emotionally manipulated by this character called Muse that got killed, and it looks like they're trying to make it look like that she's going to become the next Muse, whatever.
I mean
But
the
I kept
I
thinking
didn't
she's going to be Typhoid Mary, right?
I mean Marvel builds on its own history, and if there's a I don't I think what the thing that the only thing I could figure out was that when Jeff Loeb was the showrunner with the Netflix deal, I think he had planned, and this is just stuff people told me who were closer to the source, said that there was a plan for Typhoid to start in Iron Fist and then go to Jessica Jones and end up in Daredevil or something. But
Okay.
when the Netflix deal went away and then it all went on hiatus and they brought Daredevil back, there's I worked in film long enough to know that showrunners dump the previous showrunner's stuff. So
Right.
for whatever reason, I don't know, but I think that there is often this weird thing of Daredevil was haunted by a crazy woman with alters. We can do that even if it's a different character.
Mm.
Right.
I'm thanked in that series, I think, because they're using Bullet, Buck Cashman, who is a Bullet was a character me and John Reed Jr. created, but it's not like the beauty of Bullet was that he was explosive and he had a son that was so afraid of his explosive father, he was afraid the world was going to end any minute. And back then it
Mm.
was nuclear power. And I thought that they just stripped all that out and he's
Hmm.
just a guy.
Yeah.
That didn't
Yeah.
really make any sense, but you never know. Maybe they're like, we'll introduce him here and then we'll, but I don't
Right.
know what they're doing. I think they take from previous comics and they wrap stuff up with other stuff. And
Hmm. Hmm.
I
Hmm.
don't think that this those guys are so wonderful. Vince D'Onofrio and what's the other guy's name? Charlie
Cox, Charlie
Cox.
Cox.
They're so wonderful and they really believe in the Daredevil series, but
Yeah, they've embraced it.
I think the series didn't do well. So I don't know if it'll be.
Oh, there is a third season of
Oh,
the
there
Born
is.
Again. The Born Again is going to have a third
Yeah.
season.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah. So I don't know how it did. I watched it. I enjoyed it. I know
I don't know how you
tonight.
can measure that too, like with Disney Plus. It's such a weird metric anymore.
Well, you
Yeah, I don't.
have to, well, yeah, I have to buy Disney Plus to see it. And I just sometimes I'm just like, I already have so many subscriptions to crap that I'm kind of like, I'm not rich, I'm poor, so I'm like,
Yeah,
I'll get a subscription to the New Yorker, and then I'll be
Criterion
like,
Collection.
and then I'll realize that I can't, I'm not, and then I'll be like, well, I'd really rather read the New York Review of Books because that's like a brilliant thing. And then, but you have to switch and you have to, so, I'll have like Netflix for a while and then I'll be like, well, I gotta kill that one so I can get Disney Plus to watch this. But then sometimes I just don't even
Yeah, it's too
bother.
much. It's too much.
It's way too much. And also for my brain, I'd much rather have movie and Criterion and watch stuff that is, more in my
Yep,
wheelhouse, you know.
yep. Well, tonight is the finale of The Boys, which I'm looking forward to because I'm glad it's ending. It's just it got too
Well,
much. Speaking of,
honestly, I thought the first season was amazing,
Yeah.
yeah,
you know, because it was just like, yeah, all these superheroes are so arrogant and what. And it was based on a comic, right? Whose
Mhm.
comic
yeah.
was it?
Garth Ennis and Derek
Oh
Robertson.
yeah, like so, so that was. But then I started watching this season, and I just didn't have any interest. It just didn't
Yeah,
hold me. It just was
yeah.
like
Well, it's ending,
tired.
and then tomorrow night is the finale for Colbert, Stephen Colbert show,
Oh,
and
he's
that should
sad.
be
I think
interesting.
he's sad. He does seem sad.
Well, you know what he's doing next?
He's writing a movie, right?
He's
Lord of
working
the
on Lord of the
Rings.
Rings.
Lord
Yeah.
of the Rings. That's like,
Ah,
I don't know why he's doing that. I think he's
ah,
sad. I think it's
I'm
like,
sure he said.
I think it's like what we were talking about, even like when Marvel had Chapter 11 and people who had been inking their whole lives didn't know how to. I mean,
Yeah,
he's a talk show host. He's brilliant at it, and his
yep.
voice has been taken away. So
Well, they don't want talk shows anymore. I think that's becoming a thing of the
I don't think
past.
it's that. I think they want the talk shows to talk about what they want them to talk about, not what they want to talk about.
That's true.
but there is something to what Dean just said. It's like, I think there is I think the viewership on late night is
Hmm.
gone down, you
Yep,
know.
I mean,
yep.
there is an
But I
argument.
do think we should have our own comics, Merv Griffin.
Yeah.
Okay, and get
It's
get.
funny at the Marvel party, I was telling these young, really talented young editors they have there now. There's two female editors I'm working with that are just so sharp and fun. And I was telling them about they were talking I said we were talking about TV shows or something. And I said, "Well, remember when we used to have a Marvel TV show?" And they were like, "What?" And Cheap Laughs was like Mark Grunwald and Jack Morelli.
Oh
And
wow.
and so you can Google. I said, "Yeah, Google it." And they pulled it up and it's like it was so bad that it was funny. I'm in it. I play a vampire in one episode, and
Speaking
and
of
like,
speaking of roles that you've played, I never realized because I never even knew it was there. On the Spider-Woman 50 cover, you're on that cover. That's
yeah, it's
Tigra. And
funny.
like I never even knew the Tigra was there because she's so small on the
I'm
bottom.
Tigra. Yeah, yeah, it was freezing. We had to get out on that fire escape, and
I
then
gotta go look up that cover now.
oh my God, yeah, I'm
I
Tigra.
love Tigra. I've always wanted to do a Wonder Man and Tigra miniseries. Come on, like let's do that, Annie. Let's pitch.
There
Let's
you go. That's
do
the
a
one.
little
But I
romance.
don't even know I know who Tiger is, but who's the other one?
Wonder Man.
Who's
Wonder
Wonder
Man.
Man?
Oh, look him
I,
up. He's awesome.
Simon
I
He
don't know who
Williams.
Wonder Man.
actually Simon Williams. Yeah, and there was a TV show recently that was really good. It was one of the better Marvel TV shows. Wonder Man.
Oh,
Check it out. I think you'll
I
dig
don't
it.
know
It's
how I
fun.
missed Wonder Man.
Oh, he's great, I think he does officially date Tigra, right? Or
And was
did?
At
Wonder
some
Man a
point.
response to Wonder Woman?
I don't know. I mean,
I know Spider Woman was for legal reasons because that Spider Man they thought, well, we have to have create. She was created to not have DC creator.
Hmm.
got it. And do you
You
think
know,
She-Hulk is the same?
might have been, yeah. Just
I
because
wonder.
there was a lot of legal stuff always.
Right, right. All right. Well, I guess we're gonna wrap this
Yeah,
up soon.
yeah,
But
yeah.
Vito, did you have any other questions
I
or?
I don't. I just want to show this picture of my son catching a Palomino trout the other day.
Wow.
Nice.
So
Oh,
I mean,
nice.
there's hope for the kids yet. Getting
So
He,
I'm
outside.
gonna
he,
so I'm gonna buy one of your comics, but what do you recommend? Because I
I
don't know
will. I
anything.
will. If you want to read them digitally, I'll send them all to you. I have your email.
I like going in stores and buying comics.
It's fun. I'll send you. Yeah, it's called Stray. Uh,
Stray, I'll find it.
it's the only one written by a Vito.
I'll find it. Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, of course. I like buying actual comics, and I'm not much.
so so
You
Andy,
know what
what?
bugs me about digital comics is that you kind of click and you see panel by panel by panel. I need to see the
Yeah,
Oh, you
I'm
want
the
to see
artist
the
same
has
way.
put
page
so much into the
and to the
rhythm of the
layout?
page,
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
and it gets irritating. I'm like, wait, I want to see the rhythm
You
of
want
the
to see the
page,
page?
you
Yeah.
know?
What's on your docket, Andy?
Me?
Yeah.
Well, I have some high-low brows due, do you still do stuff for high-low
Once
brows?
in a while, I do a high-low brow. In fact, he asked me to do something in the recent one that I think you're doing, and I gave him two or three ideas that I didn't want to write.
You didn't want to,
I didn't want to write. I forget what the current one. I think Adam
I
McGovern
mean,
has,
so
right?
I did a media diet one, which is basically like, what are you reading and what do you consume?
Okay,
And then
cool.
there was one that was about like 70s comics, I think, no, it was, I can't even remember.
That one I don't
I
remember
ended up
that one.
writing about, oh, sci-fi media. I ended up writing about Gary Panter's Jimbo.
Oh,
Oh
cool.
yeah.
And that's not out yet. And then we're doing like a Patsy Cline kind of thing.
Wasn't there one where maybe you didn't get invited to this? I feel like Adam McGovern sent me one
I
where
didn't do that one. Adam, I couldn't figure out.
it was something like where someone was famous for what they've done, but what else have they done they're not famous for,
It
or
was,
something
yeah,
like that.
I couldn't think of anything.
And the only one I came up with a few, but one of them that was that James Caan used to teach cops how to fight.
That's a good one.
Hmm.
That's a good one, right? And I said, but I don't want to do that because then I'm just doing the homework and I'm going to write it, and I didn't have anything interesting to say about it, like that came from me.
Honestly, do you know that I try quite often to not write about the thing I'm writing about. So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
sometimes I'll just write about the thing I'm writing about, like
Mm-hmm.
Gary Panter. It's just because I'm such a totally love his work so much.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's like a fan letter. But sometimes I'll just sort of like we did a ska one, music, and
Yeah.
I wrote about a time I was in Jamaica and I stumbled into a strip club and Jimmy Cliff was playing, and
Come on.
Huh.
that's more like that one is sexy as hell.
I was gonna.
That's more like I like doing like, yeah, okay, I'll write about Jimmy Cliff and I'll write about this particular song, but I'm gonna make it
Well, you
confession.
had a personal experience. You had a personal,
I had
like
a
if I, I
personal
I could write
experience.
about Gigi Allen, and it would not be. I would cover the cursory stuff, but then I have a personal story about
Yeah,
Gigi
so
Allen.
that's how I think that's the better way to do high-low brows. So,
Sure.
you can't do everyone like that because, your editor will get mad at you. But
Right.
like
Right.
the Patsy Cline one, I'm no music writer. So
Right.
I'm wrapping it into a moment when jukeboxes were king
Hmm.
Oh, that's awesome.
so that I can have like, do something personal. So I think like every, Gadoo Gadoo was all personal. I
Mm-hmm.
like doing high
Mm-hmm.
low brows that are personal.
No, that's great. That's
Yeah.
great. Well, we still need to do more salon type stuff at your
I know we
house.
do. So,
We got to do an
also,
anthology, a comics anthology, and all kinds of,
yeah. And
everything.
if are we still recording, but
Yeah.
you don't,
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
if you're, no, this isn't really necessarily anything for your viewers, but if you come up to this summer to go to that party we always
Oh
go.
yeah, the Flynn party. I got invited, and I put down in the dates,
So
and yeah,
maybe we'll like do some kind of like workshop there.
we could
Just,
totally because there's some. Yeah,
my property is a good film set. There's been a lot of films shot there.
yeah.
And
I
most
love your property.
recently, a Larry Fessenden scene and his son, But there's the river, there's the scary, scary horror trailer.
Let's make a little horror movie this summer.
Yes, we should absolutely do that.
Come on, you know,
Owner will be there.
at
We'll
the
do it.
drop of a hat, you
We'll
know,
play
absolutely.
we'll play ourselves. We'll shoot each other.
Yeah,
We'll
we'll just,
live our dialogue.
yeah. I mean, as long as we have some blood, we're good.
But
You know?
as that big jaws of AI comes and overtakes us, we're gonna have to go old school. We're gonna have to
Yep.
go back to stapling shit and
Yep. Super 8 film.
Super 8. Yeah, we're gonna have to go backwards as the rest of the world rockets that way.
Back to the jukebox.
Back to the jukebox.
Jack, back to the jukebox, man. All right. Hey, thank you so much.
Thank you, Ann.
Thank you.
It was so much
Bye.
fun. And
Bye.
we'll talk to you later. All right.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. We'll talk to you guys next
I
week.
look forward to reading your comic.
Thank you, Ann. That's very nice. Thank you.